In this video, I would like to talk about the different lathe tools and how to grind them. These are carbide tools. These are purchase tools where you can just change the insert inside the carbide tool. In the beginning of our class, we don't like using the carbide tools. We want students to learn how to grind the tools and understand the different cutter clearances. Once you understand how to grind the tool, you can grind any tool that you'll ever need. All you need is a piece of high-speed steel tool steel and a grinding wheel. So just for today, I'm going to talk about these these carbide tools. I just want you to be aware that they have different names and what they're called. So when you communicate in the shop, you walk up to somebody and say, if I need a right-handed tool, they know what you're talking about. This tool here is the right-handed lathe tool. They call it right-handed because it cuts from the right to the left on the machine. This one is a center cutting tool. It's not left or right, it's just straight. And this one is the left-handed tool. It cuts from the left to the right. So we have right, center, then left. So these are just examples of carbide cutters, and I just brought this along because they're a little bit easier to see. But what we're going to grind will be high-speed steel. We're going to take just a piece of high-speed steel. It says on the side here, high-speed steel. It has the size 3/8 by 3/8 by 3 inches long. So this is a piece of tool steel. And right now it's just square and it has no real shape to it. What we're going to do actually is grind this shape on this tool. So we're going to make a right-handed tool. I just want you to be able to identify where the cutting corner is. You see here on the left-hand side is the cutting corner of the tool. So we're going to make this our cutting corner on this side. So the easiest thing to do is identify the top of the tool first. As we're grinding this, you're going to see me rolling this tool around and moving it to different positions. So try to remember that maybe the name brand is on the side, and we'll make this the top. I usually take a Sharpie marker and I'll color the top of it so we can always keep track of where it's at. This may wear off while I'm grinding, but this will help us identify where we're at. So this is a right-handed lathe tool. This one's a hand-ground lathe tool to be right-handed. This one is a grooving tool. And this one is a threading tool. Well, the thing to remember with all of these tools is the edge that cuts is the furthest most point forward on the tool. So if you look at the standard right-handed turning tool, this cutting corner here on this corner is the highest point on the tool. If I look at it at the end view, it's also the highest point. Now what I mean is if this is straight on the tool, this is actually ground at about a 10-degree angle. If you look at the side of the tool, this would be straight up and down. We actually have that ground at about 8 to 10 degrees for clearance as well. If you look at the end of the tool, it also has a little bit of a rake angle to it. This is the side rake angle. This would be straight, and this one is actually about 8 or 10 degrees. The angles are approximate. We're just going to estimate the angles as we're grinding. But this is the tool we're going to make. But even if you look at a threading tool, the top of the tool is where all the cutting happens. Everything else has to be clearance underneath the top of the tool. So this one has angle on both sides. On the grooving tool, the end of the grooving tool, the top is wider than the bottom. And if you look at the top of the tool, the front is wider than the back. That is so that the cutting tip is the widest part of the tool. I like to think of it as an ice cream scoop. I like to think that the edge of that spoon is the cutting edge of that tool. If you have the spoon down too far, the back of the spoon is going to rub on the ice cream and you won't get anything scooped up. So think of that as you're grinding these tools. Before we grind the tools though, let's talk a little bit about grinder safety. When we start up this grinder, these wheels are going to rotate at a pretty good speed. So make sure that you have everything tucked in, your shirt's tucked in, your sleeves rolled up. If you have long hair, keep that tied back, because if any of that gets caught in this wheel, somebody's probably going to get hurt pretty bad. So keep yourself working safely. We don't want any cords on the floor. We want to be making sure that we're good here. The other thing about grinding wheels is to make sure that the wheel is dressed properly. If somebody grinds the wrong material on here, these wheels are designed to grind steel. If somebody comes over and grinds aluminum on here, they're going to plug up the wheel. So then you'll have to dress the wheel. When you dress the wheel, you're actually taking off a very fine layer of the grains on this wheel. And when you do that, it makes the wheel smaller. And as the wheel wears smaller, it gets further away from this tool rest. This tool rest should be no more than 1/8 of an inch away from the wheel. And right now we're at about 1/16 of an inch away. So this one is good. It is safe to run. If this gap gets to be more than 1/8 of an inch, let your instructors know and they will show you how to adjust that. The reason why we keep the tool rest so close to the wheel is if something were to get stuck in there, if your tool bit was to grab the wheel and try to pull itself down in here, that keeps your fingers out of there. So make sure that that rest is close to the wheel. So let me demonstrate how to dress the wheel quick. It's a good idea to dress the wheel. It trues up the wheel and it opens up the wheel to the new grains. Right now these grains on the outside of the wheel are probably dull. So this will kind of rejuvenate the wheel and make it sharp again. The wheel dresser we have is the rotary type where the wheels spin against the wheel. So I'm going to start up the grinder and I'm going to move this from side to side on the wheel. I want to wear the wheel or true up the wheel all the way across. If you hold this in one spot, it's going to give you a groove in the wheel. So you want to be able to resurface the whole part of the wheel. So now that we have the wheel all nice and trued up, we open up the wheel to the new sharp grains on the wheel. We can start grinding our tool bit. So we've already identified the top of the tool with that Sharpie marker. So this will be the top of the tool. Now keep in mind that this on the right hand tool is the left hand side is the cutting edge. So the first thing I like to grind is the top of the tool. So on the top of the tool, you got to worry about two different angles. There's the side rake and the back rake angles. So in order to do that, I'm grinding a compound angle. I'm actually going to grind both of those at the same time up against the wheel. So when I start grinding, I'm going to grind, and once I find the position I like, I'm going to hold it. So while I'm grinding, you can see now I'm grinding back here on this corner. You don't want to use too much wheel pressure, otherwise you're going to burn your tool. This tool was made out of high carbon steel that's been heat treated. If you get this tool too hot, you will soften it. So this angle I'm grinding right now is actually at the angle I'm looking for. I'm about 8 degrees that way, and now on the back side I'm about 8 degrees back. So that's an angle in two directions. I have to keep grinding at that angle now until this surface is all the way across the top of the tool. Remember, this is your cutting edge and that should be the highest point. So as I grind, I'm going to keep grinding until I'm all the way to that corner. If your tool bit gets too hot while you're grinding, you can stop grinding, then dip it down here in this coolant. And that will cool down the material that you don't overheat it. So while I'm grinding, I'm going to grind and keep cooling it, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So at this point now I have the top of the tool ground. I have that surface ground all the way across the top. So if you look at the side view of this tool, I have this angle going back. If you look at the end of the tool, I have this angle going to the side. So there's actually two-direction angle. It's a compound angle going off in two directions. Just remember that this is the cutting edge of your tool. So that needs to be the highest point. The next surface I like to grind is the end of the tool. Now you can see that the manufacturer put a little angle on it already. I'm actually going to maintain that angle. But what I need to do is make this, right now it's at a 90-degree angle to this corner. For this tool to work inside of a corner on a shaft, I need to make this less than 90 degrees. So I'm going to grind this end at about a 10-degree angle. And once again, keep your cutting tip or the nose of your tool the furthest point out. So I'm going to grind an angle on there about like that. To do that, I'm just going to come up to the wheel at the angle that I need. I have to be over at that angle and down with the back of the tool. And I'm just going to start grinding. Remember, the brown marker is the top of the tool. Now the end of the tool is ground completely across. So just check your angle. Make sure you have a clearance angle underneath the cutting lip. And then at the end of the tool, you want it to be less than 90 degrees. So we've already ground two sides of this tool. All that's left is the third side. So the third side, keep in mind that this is your cutting edge. The top is your cutting edge. This is the nose of your tool. So I need to grind this at an angle. And I also need to make sure that I don't have this going too much this way. I want it to either be straight or a little bit that way when I grind it. So to do that, I'm going to bring the tool up to the wheel on this side now and straight in. So this side of the tool is now ground. This is the end of the tool. This is the side. I want to make sure you have this at an angle. Now if you notice when I grind, all of my angles are one flat face. They're nice and flat. That is very important to the life of the tool. One more thing we need to do with this tool now. Remember, this is the top with the brown marker. There's a little bit left yet. This is the cutting corner. The cutting corner has to be radiused a little bit. If you look at this Boughton carbide tool, this has the radius on that corner. You can see right here on this front corner, it has a radius. That is what makes your part smooth when you're cutting it in the lathe. As this is feeding over while your chuck rotates, that radius makes it smooth. To grind that radius on the wheel, it takes a really, really light touch. I want to match the angle that I had on the end. Once I find that angle, I'm going to roll it around to the side, and I have to match this angle that I had on the side. So this takes a little bit of practice, and you might not get it right the first time. Now if you look at the corner of the tool, I have it rounded slightly. That radius is what makes your part smooth. So just keep in mind that when you're grinding a tool, that you work safely by the grinder. Make sure you have all your cutting clearances. Remember, this is the top of the tool with the brown marker. The end of the tool needs clearance. The side of the tool needs clearance. And the top of the tool needs rake angles in both directions. And most importantly, when you're all done, make sure you get that radius on the end of the tool. Now that you know how to grind high-speed tool bits, you'll have a tool forever in your toolbox. As long as you have cutting material that you can grind, you can make your own tools any shape you want, whether they're threading tools, grooving tools, turning tools.